Are modern Greeks truly the heirs of ancient Greece? Or is it all a beautiful myth, crafted through centuries of conquest, migration, and longing? For generations, this question has haunted historians, poets, even the Greeks themselves. Because how could any people survive, unchanged, through the endless tides of history, Romans, Slavs, Byzantines, Ottomans, each wave erasing the last? Surely, the blood of Pericles, of Leonidas, was long washed away. And yet, beneath the skin, DNA tells another story. A story far older, far stranger. In recent years, scientists have extracted ancient DNA from Bronze Age tombs, the graves of the Mycenaeans, the legendary precursors of classical Greece. And when they compared those genomes to modern Greeks, the results stunned even the experts. Across 3,000 years of collapse, empire, and invasion, the genetic core remained. The same ancient threads, still woven through the veins of today's Greek people. How is this possible? How can blood remember when so much else is forgotten? Perhaps it's the land, the Aegean, timeless and fierce, a cradle of civilization, but also an anchor of identity. To belong here is not just history, it's inheritance. But what, truly, have modern Greeks inherited? Which ancient voices still whisper in their DNA, and which have been lost to the winds of time? To answer that, we must journey deeper, back to the dawn of European civilization, to a world of labyrinths, sea kings, and a script no one can read. Because to understand who the Greeks are today, we must first unearth a civilization buried beneath volcanic ash and forgotten scripts. Beneath the turquoise waters of the Aegean lies a forgotten world, a civilization so old that even the ancient Greeks called them the first. The Minoans of Crete, builders of Europe's first great palaces, masters of the sea, keepers of a script no one has ever read. Yet here is the paradox: they were not Greek, not by blood, not by tongue. Their language, lost. Their gods, older than Olympus, and their DNA, whispered an even stranger truth. When scientists sequenced Minoan genomes, the results defied expectation. Not invaders from Egypt, nor wanderers from Phoenicia, as many had believed, but something deeper, more rooted. They were the children of the first farmers, Anatolian settlers, who crossed into Europe 7,000 years ago, carrying with them seeds, sheep, and stories now long forgotten. And yet, the Minoans were not mere echoes of those Neolithic farmers. Somewhere along the way, new strands of ancestry appeared. Subtle eastern threads from the Caucasus and Iran, traces of ancient traders, metalworkers, mysterious newcomers whose names we'll never know. Still, the core remained, a lineage older than the Greek language itself, a people who rose from their island soil, not conquerors, but creators, who carved labyrinthine palaces into stone, who danced with bulls, and who left behind the indecipherable script of Linear a language locked in silence. Yet, even the greatest civilizations fall, and as the volcanic ash of Thera darkened the skies, a new force stirred beyond the northern mountains. Warriors on horseback, nomads with strange tongues, carrying a different blood and a different destiny. Because soon new blood would arrive in the land of the Aegean, and with it, the age of the true Greeks would begin. They came with no written words, no palaces, no myths, just horses and weapons of bronze, riders from beyond the Black Sea, fierce, nomadic, unknown. Yet their arrival would forever change the destiny of the Aegean. For centuries, scholars debated, how did the Greek language, the very words of Homer, first reach this land? No answer, no proof, until now. When scientists sequenced the bones of ancient Mycenaean warriors, a hidden ancestry was revealed. Steppe blood, genetic markers from the vast Eurasian grasslands, where the Amnea once rode. A people whose sons carried the first Indo-European tongues. In the DNA of Mycenaean kings, traces of this steppe inheritance gleamed. Our 1B lineages, a spark of ancestry, just 10, maybe 20%. And yet, from this small seed the new culture exploded. The age of the warrior elite had begun. Burial mounds rose, tumuli, echoing those of the steppe. Swords grew longer. Chariots thundered across the land. And for the first time, The Aegean spoke an Indo-European language, the earliest form of Greek. It was not conquest by numbers, not an overwhelming flood of invaders, but a shift of power, of prestige. The steppe riders became kings, and the people of the Aegean became Greeks. But beneath this new veneer, older blood still flowed, ancestry stretching back to the first farmers, and the Minoans before them. So the question remains, beneath the bronze masks and Homeric verse, did this new Greek identity erase the old, or merge with it? The palaces had fallen. The scribes were gone. The great Mycenaean world lay in ruins. For centuries, this was known as the Greek Dark Age, a time when even the memory of kings and heroes seemed to fade. And in the shadows of history, a question took root. Did the Greeks themselves disappear? Were they swept away, replaced by northern invaders known as the Dorians? For generations, the story held. New dialects, new weapons, a culture transformed. Surely, it must have been new blood, but now the bones tell a different tale. From Iron Age graves, researchers extracted ancient DNA and compared it to the Mycenaeans who came before. And what they found was nothing short of astonishing. The genetic thread remained unbroken. Iron Age Greeks, the DNA mirrored their Bronze Age ancestors. No sweeping replacement, no lost people. Through war, famine, collapse, the core lineage of the Aegean endured. Across the land, sacred sites continued to echo with worship, older than Olympus itself. Dialects shifted, myths evolved, but the people remained. Their blood carried the memory of a vanished world. The true survivors of the Dark Age were not kings, not palaces, but the people and their genes. And as the centuries turned and the city-states began to rise, one question emerged. As the sun rose on classical Greece, what new mixtures, what new blood would reshape them? By the dawn of the classical age, Greece was no longer a fractured land of scattered tribes. It was an engine of trade, of war, of ideas, and of people. Across the wine-dark sea, Greek ships sailed, not just for riches, but for new homes. Magna Graecia, southern Italy, Sicily, where they built new cities, stone by stone, and left behind more than marble. In the bones of East Sicilian graves, a pattern emerged. Greek Y-DNA, unmistakable. The mark of male-driven migrations, a wave of settlers, forging new bloodlines in foreign soil. But the story did not end there. In the year 480 BCE, the Greeks of Himera faced annihilation. As Carthaginian armies approached, allies were summoned from across the Hellenic world. When the battle ended, the graves told a secret no historian had written. Among the fallen were warriors of foreign blood, mercenaries from Central Europe, Scythian horsemen from the vast steppe. Side by side with the Greeks, they had fought and died. And in that moment, the myth of the pure Greek city-state unraveled. For in truth, the polis was a mosaic, a place where traders from Phoenicia shared wine with Athenian merchants, where Scythian archers patrolled the streets of Athens as hired guards, where dialects and bloodlines blended beneath the marble facades. In every bustling port, the Aegean world was not isolated. It was connected, and the genes of Greeks were already changing. But this was only the beginning, because even greater migrations were about to come, from east and from north. He set out with an army, but what he forged was an empire. Alexander, a single man, whose shadow would stretch from Greece to the edge of India. And with every conquest, a question lingered. Did the Greeks simply bring their language, their gods, their art? Or did they leave something deeper behind? Their blood. Across the shattered remnants of Alexander's path, the search began. In southern Italy, in the Levant, in the ruins of Anatolia. Could genetic traces of the conquerors still be found? The answer was yes. In isolated markers, in faint echoes of Y-DNA lineages, the imprint of Greek settlers survives. Not overwhelming, not dominant, but undeniable. A subtle thread woven into foreign lands. And yet at home, in the Greek heartland, the story was different. For while Hellenistic culture swept the known world, Greek blood remained rooted. Mainland Greeks of the era show a striking genetic continuity. Their core ancestry, Anatolian Neolithic, Caucasus/Iranian, steppe held fast. The empire had transformed the map, but not the genome. Across Alexandria, Antioch, Iconum, cities sparkled with Greek theaters, Greek speech, Greek gods. But beneath the marble and mosaic in the bones of the people, the dilution was modest, the blood more local than Hellenic. Hellenization was a triumph of culture, but in the language of DNA, it whispered a different story, a civilization that spread its mind more than its genes. But empires do not last, and as Alexander's vision crumbled, new forces stirred at the edges of the Greek world, for the next migrations would not be led by kings. They would come from the east and from the north, bringing with them a new genetic puzzle. Empires fall, borders shift, new banners rise, and through it all the land remains. But what of the people? What of the blood? By the time the Roman eagles had crumbled, new forces moved into the Balkans. From the forests and rivers of the north, the Slavs came, wave after wave. Settlers, farmers, warriors. And for the first time in centuries, the ancient Greek genome would face a true test. In modern DNA, their legacy is clear. In the northern Balkans, Slavic ancestry can reach as high as 60%. But as you move south across the mountains, toward the islands, the signal fades. In the heartlands of Greece, the ancient core remains. Weakened. Yes, changed. Inevitably, but not erased. Like a palimpsest, an old manuscript scraped clean and written over. But beneath the new ink, the original words still whisper. Through the Byzantine centuries, through war and plague, that ancient thread survived. And then came the Ottomans, an empire that ruled the land for nearly 500 years. And yet, in the genetic record, their imprint is faint, a scattering of markers, a dusting of Central Asian ancestry, just a few percent at most. Surprising? Perhaps. But here, the Aegean once again proved its resilience, a land that absorbed invaders, but kept its core intact. And so, through all the tides of history, through conquest and collapse, the question remains. So after all this, who are modern Greeks, really? 70%, 80, even 90. That is the modern Greek genome. Not a myth, not a dream, but a living chain, stretching back 3,000 years, through Mycenaean kings, through Neolithic farmers, through steppe riders whose language reshaped the land, layer upon layer. Each migration, each war, each love story, written not in stone, but in the blood. There is no single Greek gene, no ancient essence trapped in amber. Instead, the tapestry, threads from Anatolia, from the Caucasus, from the windswept steppe, woven through centuries of survival, resistance, rebirth. And today, in the veins of millions, that legacy still flows. When a child is born in Athens, in Crete, in Thessaloniki, they carry a past older than Homer, older than the Parthenon. It is not a story of purity. It is a story of resilience, of identity forged across millennia. But then comes the deeper question. What does it mean to carry ancient blood? Not in legend, but in your very cells. To walk the streets of modern Greece, knowing that beneath your skin, echoes of Bronze Age ancestors still live? And perhaps more importantly, what other ancient mysteries still sleep within the genome? Because just beyond the horizon, another enigma waits. The Sea Peoples, a shadowy force who shook the ancient world. Who were they? Where did they come from? And could their story be tied to Greece itself? The next DNA puzzle begins there.